Endorsed, Citizens for a Better America. Afternoon, Assemblywoman Seaman. Assuming you get elected to the state senate, what would be the 3 priority bills or types of bills that you would like to see introduced and considered in the Senate?
Thank you for having me. First of all, there are a lot of bills that I'm looking over right now. I haven't picked any specific ones. The main concerns are still jobs, education, public safety. Those seem to be the 3 most important things for the constituents in my district. So again, I'm meeting with different people when different issues come up, and that's the beauty about walking the district and meeting my constituents, as I did before I ran for assembly. Walking the district, you learn what are the real issues in your district, and one of them in my district was squatters, and I bipartisanly brought forth legislation that got passed for helping with that concern and issue that we had in my district.
Mr. Lauer?
Rob Lauer. So you voted against the $1.3 billion tax increase that the governor put forward. So what's your plan to fund education, and what do you do to get us out of the bottom 50th in the country?
Well, first of all, we put forth some really good legislation that I believe would have helped us, which was the education savings accounts and the opportunity scholarships. And we've thrown more money at education for years, and we haven't seen an improvement. But these particular bills that were passed would have been a great start in improving our education, and it wouldn't have cost the state money. And I think in the long run, what we understand, it would have saved the state money. And I think it was $1.4 billion now.
Will Crespo. Well, I'm trying to make this short. I'm trying to shorten up my question here. Would you be willing to attempt to pass a bill that would show the state's appreciation for veterans, which would allow county and municipalities to give them, let's say, 5 extra points on a test or something like that, to give them a little heads up, a little leg up on as far as getting employed by public governments, becoming public employees?
Well, I'm not sure if you know, we've done some really good legislation in the last legislative session for veterans. There were quite a few bills that we moved forth to help veterans, and we did recognize them as far as, I think it's the 3rd Wednesday of March that is legislative day for veterans, and as far as naming buildings after certain veterans. And you know, as far as tests, it would depend, you know, that's the job. I think better we give the incentives to the employers to hire veterans that come back from serving our country.
Len Powell.
Hi.
Hi. Hopefully Chris is ready one day. My partner. He's right. Anyway, what would you say is the #1 problem facing Nevada veterans today? And come next session, if you had one thing to accomplish to help the veterans, what would it be?
I think like I said, we've done some good legislation in the Veterans Court that we funded was excellent. And I think we have to work with our veterans. Some of them come back with the PTSD, the mental health issues from serving in our country, and these are things that I think are really important issues. Working with veterans so that they can be whole again, so that we can get them back into society. And anything that we continue to do to help them with some of the issues that they face being in combat and coming back home is what we need to concentrate on.
It's well known that we have a serious lack of resources for mental health treatment and such in Southern Nevada. What did you do in the last session of the legislature to improve that, and what do you plan to do in the next session to alleviate those concerns?
Well, first of all, I think by funding the Veterans Court was one of the great things that we did, because a lot of these servicemen and women that come back get involved with drugs and different alcohol to sort of combat some of their mental issues with the PTSD and so forth. And the Veterans Court that we funded, I believe, is a real success here. I've spent time with Judge Saragosa, who works with the Veterans Court, and I will certainly reach out to her to see what more we can do to help our veterans. I think she's been a great resource in our legislature as far as with veterans and the squatter bill, and I will reach out to her and see what other things we can do to help our veterans.
No, I was just addressing mental health in general, not veterans per se.
Well, a lot of the time, with the mental health issues, a lot of these servicemen and women, from what I understand, they turn to alcohol and drugs to sort of mask it. And so the Veterans Court has been a good resource to rehabilitate them and get them some type of treatment.
Hello, and thank you for your time. My name is Taylor Snapper, and I just wanted to ask, because you hit on some good points about education. You said you're spending money in education. I haven't been here in Nevada. I've been here for 5 years, and I've always been curious about just the education system. But I was curious, why did the state give incoming teachers a $5,000 incentive instead of compensating the existing teachers in the Clark County school system? Or
That's a very good question. We have a shortage of teachers, obviously, in the state of Nevada, so that was an incentive to bring in teachers. But you're right, with this huge tax bill, SB 483, that I didn't vote for, but we put forth, teachers didn't get any sort of raise or pay. So there are some things that I want to go back to Carson City and incentivize teachers. And we have to look at where we're really putting out this money and where we're spending the money, because like you say, we're having to incentivize new teachers, but our current teachers haven't seen any kind of pay raise.
Hi, I'm Tim Pitar. So, as a millennial voter, I want to ask you some question. A lot of people, they go from office to office and they bounce around and change jobs and they just kind of put on different hats and they become career politicians. So, what I want to ask you as a millennial voter, why should I elect you? I mean, why aren't you just starting your career as a politician just to bounce from office to office? Why should I trust that you're not trying to be a career politician to live the rest of your life as a politician or versus serving the people?
That's a very good question. I actually am the Assemblywoman of half of Senate 6. Both my colleagues in Senate 6, which would have been Senator Liparelli and Assemblyman Glenn Trowbridge, were appointed. I was actually the only elected in Senate 6. 80% of Nevadans, and I believe 76 or 78% of my district, voted against the gross receipts tax, the largest tax increase in Nevada state history. I decided to run for Senate because I believe, since they both voted for it, that they were out of touch with the constituents. I walked my district 3 times. I knew what the real issues were in Assembly 34, which is half of Senate 6, the squatter issue, the guardianship issue, and I felt like the colleagues who were currently in Senate 6 were out of touch. And that is why I decided to run for Senate 6.
Thank you.
Hello, Daphne Lee. I think I might have asked you this last time you were here running for Assembly, but it's kind of a growing issue. So the NSA has been revealed to be taking in all Americans' data unwarranted, and Congress has yet to act. They did like a fake pretends like reining in with the Freedom Act, but that actually expanded the powers of the NSA. And now the president is talking about expanding those access to that information to local law enforcement. So I know there was a little scandal last session where Metro might have been wiretapping some legislators. Imagine having the power of the federal government's metadata that's being taken in, your emails, your phone calls. Would you support legislation to protect the privacy of Nevadans?
Absolutely, and unfortunately what you're talking about is on a federal level, but absolutely I would support legislation to protect privacy acts. And you're really up to date on what happened in the last legislative session.
Good afternoon, my name is Robert Faust.
Where are you on firearms on campus as far as concealed weapons permits, and would you ever consider defunding school sports?
You know, that's a good question. I have never thought of that, the defunding of school sports. But I wouldn't think that would be a good idea to defund school sports. I am a CCW carrier. I carry wherever I can. Campus carry was a very important bill to me because of rapes and of course the Brianna situation where she ended up being murdered. I think that it's an unfair playing field when you have criminals that can bring firearms on campuses and yet innocent law-abiding citizens cannot protect themselves. I think we would be a lot safer if we would get rid of no gun zones. We would have, gun-free zones. We absolutely need to have the freedom to protect ourselves no matter where we are at all times.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Cindy.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
The United States Constitution limits the federal government's power, scope and power of what they're able to do and how much land they're able to own. Several of our very own legislators went above and beyond in trying to mitigate a situation out of state and even in state. I did not see you as being one of those people, legislators, so I'd like to know where you stand on whether the federal government can do what they've been doing in terms of what the BLM has done to the Bundy family and also eminent domain, the taking of other people's private property
30 seconds.
In the name of security, etc. So what's your position on Nevada's land situation, public lands, and what will you do to prevent that situation from ever happening again?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to elect those on the federal level that will fight for our lands because 87% of our lands do belong to the federal government. We are still a country of the rule of law, and so there are ways that we are able to change these laws, and I know it's hard and it takes certain steps, but we really need to educate the public on what's going on with our federal lands so that we can get those who will fight for our lands back. Because as long as they're in the hands of the federal government, we're going to see this overreach.
I'm Scott Lafado with Citizens for a Better America. My question revolves around the legislature in last session passed legislation to increase taxes and then for education, specifically for education, but refused to earmark it. Can you comment on that in terms of your position on earmarking funds out of the state assembly or in this case the state senate?
Are you talking about SB 43 specifically?
Well, yes and no. I mean, for instance, money comes from the state legislature down to the school districts, and the school districts spend it any way they want. A lot of times, the special programs get either defunded or short-sighted, so there's no specific direction from the legislature on how to spend it. Can you just give us a few thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was very disappointed at what we did this past session with SB 483. I think the first step is breaking up this Clark County School District, so it's actually the 4th largest in the nation. It's too big and it's out of control. And what this bill did, SB 483, was create a bunch of new programs with really little or no accountability as far as I'm concerned. And I was completely against the bill. I'm completely against 90% of the programs that were created. I think we're just creating more administration on top of administration, and we're going to continually have to raise money to feed these unnecessary programs, and I will fight and do anything I can to change that.
Okay, thank you very much, candidate Seaman. Pleasure seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.